Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Logistics, where we have conversations with thought leaders and newsmakers in the supply chain logistics industry. It's my great pleasure to welcome today's program, Frauke Heisterman, who is member of the management board at Axit, a Siemens company. And today we're going to talk about From Hype to Reality, a roadmap for digital supply chain benefits. Now, digital supply chains is a topic that, certainly there's a lot of conversation around today, a lot of buzz around today. If you go to any supply chain logistics conferences, it's one of the topics of conversation. You've seen in many blogs. Certainly, we've written about it on Talking Logistics as well. But there's also a lot of questions around it. What exactly does the digital supply chain mean? How do you get there, right? How do you enable it? What are some of the expected benefits? So those are the questions that I certainly hear a lot of end users out there, manufacturers, retailers, and others, asking and trying to get some clarity around. And so it's great to have Frauke with us here today. She's in the front lines of all this, working with clients and others in this area. So it's great to have her with us today to kind of share her perspective, her insights in terms of where we are today with regards to creating the digital supply chain, and some of the steps to getting there, maybe what's in store for the future. So Frauke, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Now, Frauke, you're a first-time guest on Talking Logistics, and like I always do when we bring someone new to the program, is I'm always interested in finding out a little bit about how and why they got involved in this industry to begin with. So why don't you briefly tell us a little bit about, how and why you got involved with supply chain logistics, and what your current role and responsibilities are there at Axit.
Okay. Well, I decided to work in logistics industry for more than 20 years ago. First as a consultant, later on as a product manager at TNT. And some years later, I decided to found our own company together with two other colleagues. This was Axit. And this was the year 1999. And there was a really big first internet hype. So our idea initially was to reduce or to get rid of paperwork and replace it via IT and use the internet for that. And here we are today. So we are now running the logistics platform AX4, which with more than 200,000 users. And since 2 years, we are a member of the Siemens family, a specialist to speed up our internationalization. Now it's Axit, a Siemens company. In our management board, I'm responsible for the topic strategy, communication, to push innovative topics, marketing. And maybe as a kind of business hobby, I really love to publish articles, expert papers around innovative topics concerning IT, supply chain management. And in addition, I'm member of the board of the German Logistics Association. By the way, one of the biggest worldwide. I think we have more than 10,000 members there. So it's not at all boring. It's still very exciting to be in logistics, especially at this time.
No, absolutely. I mean, certainly, I think we got kind of started around the same time, because I started, in the supply chain logistics industry around 1997, 1998, and certainly a lot has changed since those .com days, and and a lot continues to change, and with a bright future moving forward. So you're right; it is a very exciting time, and certainly this whole topic of the digital supply chain is one of those areas that keeps it exciting with a lot of great potential and opportunity for efficiencies and, enabling new business processes. So let's go right into the topic. Like I said, there's a lot of buzz and hype today around the digital supply chain. So let's start with a basic question. I mean, what is a digital supply chain?
Well, from my perspective, digital supply chain means, first of all, that all participants along the supply chain, and there are a lot, like suppliers, forwarding agents, hubs, warehouses, logistics service providers, consignees, that all of them, they are working in one cross-company process, which is digitized. And all participants are exchanging their data, but not only data, I think that's also important. Digital also means that in this case, they are exchanging information, knowledge, and via this, they can create end-to-end visibility. And digital for me also means the influence or the integration of Internet of Things, where we have not people entering data, but we have sensor-based data or tags which deliver other important information to manage the supply chain properly.
Yeah, no, I think you hit on a lot of great points there, and one of the things that the way I see it, I'll be just to paraphrase a little bit of what you said, and just to kind of expand on it a little bit. When I tend to think of it is, for a long time, companies have focused on kind of inside the four walls, right, and kind of improving those areas. But part of the digital supply chain is really now thinking cross enterprise, right, across companies, across trading partners, and how do you automate, how do you digitize the business processes that go across trading partners. And I kind of tend to look at it almost like the what's happening in the consumer world with social networking, right, with like Facebook or LinkedIn, and trying to bring that kind of similar type of environment to the business world in terms of facilitating the flow of information and knowledge, and extending the processes outside the four walls of your company. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And especially I like this outside the four walls, because some years ago, companies started, or they already finished, that they improved their processes within their company. But now the next steps are to look across the borders, and to look for saving potentials if you improve the network of the participants who work together. And therefore, it's really important to look to have a wide look at the supply chain, and not only on each and every company. In a single way.
Right. So to build upon that, because one of the questions I get a lot is, companies have been using technology for a long time, right? Such as the internet and software. A lot of them have invested in all sorts of, technology in the logistics and supply chain operations. And obviously, going back to the dot-com days and the rise of the web and everything else, the internet has been part of supply chain management for some time to enable the supply chain processes. So what is different and new today, as it relates to digitizing the supply chain?
I think the real new thing is now the new role and importance of IT. IT is no longer just a tool where I type in data and then it's automated. IT in the age of digitalization becomes a major part of the strategy of the company. IT is an enabler of success. It helps companies to differentiate in comparison to competitors, for instance. And the other new thing from my point of view is the high maturity of IT and technology today, especially if you look in the area of mobile access or Internet of Things. There we had a massive development and a very high maturity of technology now. And this also means that it's affordable or payable for each and everyone. It's not any longer, IT is not any longer expensive.
I think I like the way you kind of position that, because I think which suggests another important thing in terms of the role of IT, that there needs to be better collaboration, right, between supply chain logistics organization and the IT organization, because you can almost say that historically there was kind of a barrier between them, right? But now you really have to work more closely together to really understand the opportunities that exist there, and how to effectively implement these technologies, these new technologies, particularly some of the things you talked about with Internet of Things, with the goals and objectives that supply chain operations have, right?
Absolutely. And I would say there is still room for improvement, because still IT people, they talk in special vocabularies and languages, and those languages are difficult for the business people to understand. But business people have to get close to IT and understand it to create new, smart, innovative business cases. So IT and business, they should not any longer work in two separate rooms as well. They also have to think this cross-border issue.
Yeah, that's a great point. I always advise supply chain logistics executives to learn to speak the language of the CFO, right? To be able to position their objectives and their initiatives around, from a financial perspective. But I think another good advice is learning to speak the language of IT, and vice versa for IT to understand, supply chain logistics, so that together they can see those opportunities. One of the other areas is that I see different. I'm kind of curious about your perspective, particularly what's different today is, the rise of cloud computing and the opportunity for companies to they have access now, number one, to greater computing power than they ever had before. And number two, the cloud kind of serving as a platform for connectivity to bring those trading partners together. What's your thoughts on kind of the role that cloud computing is bringing to all of this?
I really love the possibilities of cloud technology in context with supply chain management, because the cloud is available as a technology globally, all over the world. And supply chains, they are also running globally. So cloud is the ideal connector, let's say it like this, to connect people to one central IT solution and to give access to data independently if someone is located in China or in the US or in Europe or wherever. They just could share their processes, their information via the cloud. So from my point of view, I always say cloud and logistics, they fit together like a very good couple.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think, for a long time, I've been a big proponent of, network-based, cloud-based, solutions for supply chain logistics processes, because so many supply chain logistics processes are inherently network-based, across enterprise, based. So I think that's a critical piece. So, I mean, obviously, working with clients, helping them kind of go along this journey. I mean, what do you see? What have they experienced? What do you hear from clients? Are some of the biggest challenges or barriers that companies are facing in transitioning to a digital supply chain?
There are certainly some hurdles or barriers. I would say first hurdle is that a company just waits and looks what other companies are doing, and then starts to act. But this is no option in the digital age. Just wait and see what others are doing, because things develop so fast. We also have the saying, Rome wasn't built in a day, but this saying is not does not fit any longer to the digital age. So this first hurdle, they really have to do something, try something. Next hurdle is that I see that a lot of companies, they think that becoming a digital company means to start a huge project with a lot of budget and a lot of resources, and they are afraid of that. But digital transformation does not mean at all to do those big projects. It is the opposite. That the better way is to do it step by step and to learn from each step to the other. So just try things, learn from it, and then doing the next step. And maybe another hurdle, we touched that already in our talk, is that companies often do not have really concrete ideas, because business on the one hand does not understand what IT or technology could offer them. On the other hand, IT technology maybe do not really understand the business. But if those two departments really work close together and get a better understanding, this would help to reduce this hurdle a lot.
Yeah, that's a great. Those are three great points, and I particularly like the first one. Rome wasn't built in a day, but we all know that things are moving so quickly in this industry. Where years ago it was okay to perhaps to kind of take a step back and kind of wait for others to take the lead, and then kind of be a fast follower or be a laggard, and still be okay. But today, if you wait too long, the competition and those could be so far ahead that you'll never catch up. And I think we've all learned from the past about, the dangers of taking the big bang, approach. There's a lot of cost, a lot of risk, a lot of uncertainty. So I think your advice in terms of starting, and I think this is the area where working with IT collaboratively makes sense in terms of defining those quick win type of projects that can, deliver benefits that then you can apply towards the next initiatives, right?
Yeah, and maybe also in addition, it's not the key success element to create a business case for each and everything and try to calculate everything in advance. It's a bit more about getting back to the startup mentality and get this into the culture of big companies again. Yeah, just to try things, for instance.
That's great. I think there's obviously important. It's always important to build a business case and to understand where you're going and put the financials around it. But to your point, you can spend so much time and effort and energy. Next thing you know, a year has gone by and you haven't taken any action. So you have to balance that with, like you said, kind of the entrepreneurial perspective, and not be afraid to, try something quick, see if it succeeds or fails, and then, move on and learn from there. So let's talk a little bit about, the technology now. From a technology standpoint, I mean, what are some of the key capabilities or attributes that companies should look for in a digital supply chain platform?
Well, first of all, the basic function which is needed is connectivity or integration capabilities to really integrate with the existing systems like an ERP system, WMS forwarding system, whatever. And these integration capabilities have to be very easy and very flexible because it's a must-have. Secondly, there is the possibility, or there must be the possibility, to model those cross-company workflows along the whole supply chain and to model the roles for the different participants, that everyone has got his or her own view on the data. And third point is for sure to offer the typical functionalities I need to manage my supply chain, starting with order management, shipment management, tracking to get end-to-end visibility, having alerting systems, overviews or searches or dashboards, for instance, to handle all those data, having transparency about freight cost or freight cost calculation, and also upload of some documents which are still needed, and combine them with the digital data. I think these are major functionality requirements, and maybe finally a modern SCM IT solution should be highly flexible and agile to adapt to changing market requirements, because this could happen very often and very fast. And there it means that the UI or the workflows, they have to be configurable just by a click to change certain things instead of hard coding everything. This is not modern at all. No.
That's a great point. I mean, we talk so much. I mean, the other buzzwords you hear in the industry is about flexibility and responsiveness, right? But ultimately, you have to enable that. And if your technology isn't able to quickly and efficiently enable new business processes or change processes, then it's going to be very difficult for you to, in the eyes of the customer, right, be able to meet their needs. Going back to the first point that you brought up in terms of integration and connectivity. Certainly, I see that as a foundational a key capability in enabling all of this. Just kind of curious in your perspective. I mean, one of my predictions that I made going into 2016 was the growing use of APIs and cloud web services, almost kind of replacing EDI moving forward. I think EDI is going to be here for a while, but I think the more modern approach is the use of APIs and web services. Are you seeing that as well?
Yes, we are seeing that absolutely as well, that web service offers also the possibility to get direct access to the data without any delay in time, and that's important to get fast response. So absolutely, but on the other hand, we also see that a lot of companies are still using EDI. We think this will be replaced step by step, but I also think this will take, in addition, some more years to really have replaced everything.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of investment, a lot of infrastructure in place with EDI for sure. So yeah. But I think you're right. I think if companies, I think understanding that reality is important, but also understanding that there are more modern approaches to integrations with APIs and web services, being kind of leading the front there. I think incorporating APIs and web services in your strategy and your roadmap, I think, is critical for companies to think about. So let's talk about kind of how companies should get started. I mean, for companies that are just, in the beginning stages of this journey, I mean, what are some of the key, steps and milestones, on the roadmap to digital transformation, and who needs to be involved in that transformation?
I think in general, that's comparable to typical normal IT project on the one hand. So at first, companies have to define their aim. What do they want to reach? Yeah? Do they want to reduce costs? Do they want to enhance their revenue? Do they want to enhance reliability in their transportation or reduce complexity, or just make the customer happy by offering cool, smart services? If they have defined this aim, they have to define the process and the stakeholders who have to be integrated. And stakeholders in the supply chain could be just, for example, to integrate with all the suppliers or with the forwarders or all together in one procurement or distribution network. So this has to be defined. And then with the major stakeholders, they have to check if they have the same aims. They have to check if the ideas, the process works. Because it's not any longer, if we think in cross-border, it's not any longer that a big company just can force others to integrate in their solution. From my perspective, there have to be advantages for all participants. This will not be the same advantages or of the same size for everyone, but no one should be forced to use a system or to integrate. It should be easy and should give him also advantages. This has to be checked from my point of view. And then I would really recommend to start with a smart pilot and just try, instead of trying to invent everything before I do anything. Yeah, this would not work from my perspective. So doing it in concrete small steps, getting more experience by doing those prototypes or pilots, and taking the successes out of those steps to convince the others and to grow sustainably in the solution. That's my recommendation.
Well, those are great recommendations. I particularly like, the need to get the kind of the buy-in and the support from the various stakeholders. And obviously, it's not only the internal stakeholders, but it's the external stakeholders that are just as important, or even more important, you can argue, in terms of suppliers, logistics service providers, customers. I think it suggests that companies really have to start walking the talk on that other buzzword you hear so much about, which is collaboration. So it sounds like truly taking a collaborative approach and a collaborative perspective on defining the process, on defining the benefits for all the stakeholders is kind of the critical first step. So collaboration is key here.
From my perspective, yes, and collaboration also needs a kind of change in thinking, because companies must be interested to understand how the others in the process are working, and how they could improve their processes by delivering better data, better information. But it's about not only to understand how the own company is working, but also to understand how the others are working. And together, there are a lot of advantages which could be realized then. But this is, for me, part of collaboration. It's understanding the others, being interested in complete end-to-end visibility, being interested in the process of the other companies as well.
Right. No, I think that's absolutely key here. And I think, you're right. I think in the areas that I've seen the most success has been companies that have really changed their mindset, towards this collaborative, taking this collaborative approach and really defining, why it is a win-win, and understanding, what are the benefits for each of the parties? What are the risks that each party needs to, perhaps, be aware of, and then, how to move forward together to achieve those benefits. So let's talk about the benefits now. With the companies that you've worked with, based on the experience with your clients, what are some of the benefits that, they are achieving? And in other words, what's the business case for enabling a digital supply chain?
Well, to start with giving you some concrete figures out of projects we did for customers. There is, for instance, the advantage to reduce freight costs by being more efficient. And companies can reduce their freight costs by between 8 to 15% along the supply chain. They can also reduce the pure administrational effort to control freight costs extremely by nearby 80%, because systems are doing that then automatically. They can, on the other hand, increase efficiency and productivity, for instance, at the warehouse entry, because to give you that concrete example, now it's completely visible and clear what is on the inbound side and what will arrive in which amount at which time, which means I can flexibly dispose the stuff. And our customers tell us that they gain more than 40% productivity more at the warehouse RAM, which means they can handle 40% more shipments with the same stuff and equipment. But it's not only about those concrete issues or functions. It's also about what do I save if I use a modern IT solution, which is smart, which means agile and flexible to configure. Because for rollouts, if I want to roll out my solution and integrate 400 or 100 different forwarders or 1,000 different suppliers, I can just do it via click of a button, and via the cloud, the company is already integrated in the solution. So I can also speed up time to market dramatically via such a kind of platform. And well, if we look at our customers, there are for sure other business cases. They can reduce cost of complexity. So this means they reduce redundancies, they enhance efficiency in their supply chain networks. They can enhance reliability of the delivery, what is very, very important for them, by reducing risks along the supply chain or knowing in advance that there could be a problem, and they can handle that or solve that before. And what we also see, especially in this collaboration issue, is that sharing information and sharing knowledge about how people work together is a very good basis to create new innovation and to create new ideas. And another issue is that especially logistics service providers, they can earn more revenue by offering new digital services in data management and data analytics to their customers. So yes, there is a wide range of opportunities, advantages. Everyone has to choose the priority.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, I think that there's a lot of entry points, you know, and you can build that business case, you know, very, very broadly. But echoing kind of something you said before, I mean, there are also opportunities to kind of, you know, identify kind of a quick win, you know, project in one of these benefit buckets that can then help fund, if you will, or help, you know, take the savings of that project and then move the project forward or expand the scope of it, right?
Yes. I think it's always a good idea to define milestones which should be reached, learn from it, taking the benefits, and then saying, okay, and what's next?
You know, one of the other areas that I see more and more companies looking at the value of the digital supply chain, and particularly with a network cloud-based platform, is from a risk management standpoint, right? Because if they have that visibility in terms of more real-time, more accurate visibility of what's happening across the supply chain, the ability to be more proactive in terms of responding to potential exceptions, I think that's another area where companies are seeing value in. So do you see that dimension as well, the risk management dimension?
Absolutely. To give you an example on the procurement side, if I look at a global supply chain for procurement, and there are often companies, they just do not know, is my supplier able to deliver the order I placed in the right amount at the right time? Is anything happening which is not planned during the transportation process? And having the visibility at the very beginning to see if everything is in time, if everything is produced well, prevents them from managing all those black holes and just guessing. And now it's transparent, and they get more time to prepare if there is a problem. This is reported directly because milestones and important steps are monitored all the time. And if they know in advance that there could go something wrong, they have much more time to prepare and to think about what I could change. Yeah, this is one example. And if we regard all those big data issues, we could collect even more data, not only directly from the participants in the supply chain, but weather data, for instance, traffic jam data, whatever. And we could, in an intelligent way, integrate them and help via this customers or company to have a very precise forecast of the real estimated time of arrival. And to have this, we ask our customers, and one major driver for them, or one major advantage, is to have a precise information if the forecasted estimated time of arrival is reached or not, if it's in danger. And if it's in danger, they want to know it first before the final consignee knows it.
No, absolutely. I think you touched upon there, I think, another element of the value proposition, which is, you know, there's so much discussion today about business intelligence and analytics, and that's certainly top of mind for many supply chain and logistics executives. And, you know, when you look at a cloud-based platform and the fact that you've got, you know, so much data and information and insight flowing through a common network, that really opens the door to, you know, achieving greater levels of insight around what's happening with the supply chain, and opens the door to, you know, the opportunities to be more, you know, to do more predictive analytics and to do more prescriptive analytics, which I think is on the roadmap of a lot of technology companies as well. I assume for you as well.
analytics is one very, very important topic. Also this prescriptive, predictive analytics for sure. One little tiny thing has to be done before companies become really successful in analytics, and this is to have validated, complete, and right data. And if you ask companies today, they say, well, often my data are scrap. I have just scrap data. I have no trust to my data. And this is the very first step. And a cloud platform or a platform where all participants work together helps immediately to improve data. Because first participant is entering the data, the other one sees, improves, adds information, the next one adds information in addition, and this step by step, by this sharing idea of data, we automatically reach that we get really cool, validated, and complete data, and then we can do analytics. Unfortunately, we see that a lot of companies, they are in this first step, trying to get good data where all participants have trust to those data.
Yeah, Frauke, you hit upon a topic that's been a soapbox topic for me for many, many years. And you're right. I mean, I think, it's very easy to kind of focus on the software, very easy to focus on Internet of Things and all this, cool technology, if you will. But at the end of the day, the critical step in fulfilling the value of all this technology is having timely, accurate, and complete, data. And for a lot of companies, as you mentioned, data quality management is still a challenge. I think you're right. I think when I view, network-based platforms and providers, that's another area of value that network providers can bring to the table, is to provide, some processes and capabilities around data quality management that, as you said, is really the prerequisite to doing everything else. Frauke, we're running short on time here, so I'm just going to go right to my last question. As a way to wrap up, I mean, what questions should companies, ask themselves, to assess whether they are leaders or laggards, when it comes to, digital supply chain transformation?
That's a good question. We also asked ourselves this question, and somehow we said, okay, we could develop a kind of digital maturity check. Yeah, how far are they, and where are potentials to improve digitalization and so on. So there are several questions companies could ask themselves to position where they are or where they can improve. One question is, how far are they in their capability to connect to the outside world? How often do they look across their company borders to think how could they integrate and communicate with their network, with the participants in the supply chain? How many of them did they already connect to their processes? Could be another question. Do they have really end-to-end visibility, especially in multimodal transports, or are there still some black holes which have to be clarified? Do they have a high automation degree in processing data is another issue. Or we discussed about risk management. So the question is also how transparent are possible risks, and can they be forecasted somehow? That's an important question. And this question concerning collaboration, do the companies already know how their partners in the next step are working, what processes are important for them, and did they think about how to integrate not only in data but in processes with them? This is an extract of questions companies can ask themselves, and then to see, okay, am I prepared in a good way, or do I have to make some homework maybe before?
No, those are all great questions. I think they hit upon a lot of what we talked about, in our conversation here. So I think it's a great, a great starting point for companies to kind of get the conversation started internally and with their trading partners in terms of how to move about this journey. Well, Frauke, I always say at the end of all our episodes, we always just manage to scratch the surface on these topics, but I think you provided some great insight and some advice and some great advice for companies to think about, as they move forward with their, with their journey in the digital supply chain. So thank you very much for making the time to be with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Adrian. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
Great. Great. I want to thank those of you that joined us today. We didn't get any questions, but if you have any questions for Frauke and you're watching this on demand, either at the Axit website or on the Talking Logistics website, you can post a question or comment there. I'm sure that Frauke will be more than happy to respond via that medium. So again, thank you all for joining us today and look forward to seeing you in a future episode of Talking Logistics. Have a great day.